Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Alright guys, so today I'm going to be talking about just my opinion on another Android cast on why Apple will fall. And I've had this stance for a long time. I've honestly had it since last year when Steve Jobs passed away because I knew that Steve Jobs made that company and Tim Cook is not fit to run the company. And we've seen it in his mistakes that he's made over the past year. But not only that, I don't think that there's anyone in Apple out of their entire camp that I've seen that can run the company the way it needed to be run. Not that I would offer to, of course, because I'm glad to see that company fall, but just want to give you guys an idea and the reasons why that Apple is failing right now and they will continue to decline. So let me give you a couple of insights on this. So first of all, we're just going to go from a stock perspective, then I'm going to go on the reasons why they're falling, okay? So first thing, it's been now 60 days since Apple hit their all-time high on their stock, which was $702. Today's current stock is $556, meaning that Apple has dropped $146 in the past 60 days. That is huge for a company. That is something you do not see in a company normally drop that much and that dramatically and that quickly. So it's definitely seen as just basically a wow factor to a lot of people in stocks. Now, I saw this coming, like I said, a while back. And I advised people, that I knew personally in my life, I was like, oh yeah, I would definitely sell all of your Apple stock right here and now. Because if you don't, it's just going to continue to go down. I said this a year ago, and I was right. It did go up, and now it's going down, and it will continue to go down. So here's why. Let's start off with the dates as they came. Okay, so September 12th. Okay, we have iPhone 5 announcement, and the stock is at 669. Okay, so it's still trending upward. Uh, Apple hits their all-time high at $702 on the 19th, so 12th to 19th. Then we go to the release date for the iPhone 5. The release date hits, and guess what happens? We already started to see it go down a little bit, not dramatic in stocks. Anyone that knows, you're always going to hit $10 up or down. It's no problem. So iPhone 5 hits, it's $700. However, from the iPhone 5 coming out to then, the rest of the iPad Mini coming out, which was about a month apart, you'll see a dramatic change. And that is $700 when the iPhone is announced. And a couple of things happened after the iPhone was announced. So for one, we saw that Apple could not compete with sales that the Samsung Galaxy S3 had put out. They were only able to sell 5 million, where the Galaxy S3 was able to sell 9 million pre-orders. So they fell down there. And you had, if you want to debate this, you had a lot of people that were Apple-based that were saying, oh, they're going to send 10 million, they're going to send 10 million, and the only reason they said that was because that they wanted them to be Samsung, which they didn't come close to. Another thing happened, and that is Apple has had a shortage of iPhones for a while now. Now, why is this? It's not because of their sales. Their sales have actually been lackluster. The real reason behind it is because that Foxconn could not produce as many iPhone 5s and as many iPad minis for their announcement that was coming in a month as Apple wanted to. So Apple actually had to, first produce as many iPhone 5s as possible, then kind of put those on the light side of production, and then produce iPad mini so that they had a good amount to produce and to sell for the launch. And this is what really happened. And this is what people do not understand, that why iPhone 5s are sold out in the US all over the place. It's not because of sales. It's actually simply for the fact that they could not produce as many. And that's actually the real reason behind it. And that shows because that their stock has continued to go down, their sales have been lackluster. Analysts are trying to, Apple has a lot of analysts in their pocket. I will always say that. Apple has a lot of analysts in their pocket. And they have been increasing their numbers to go down to make Apple look better. Like, oh yes, they exceeded analyst numbers, but they've still not even matched the lower analyst numbers. And this is a problem. Now, some analysts are saying that, oh, it sold more than expected and everything like that. No, it hasn't. Compared to what the iPhone 4S did in that time frame, it sells a lot better, actually. So a couple of things on that. Now, so from the iPhone 5 release, $700, to the iPad mini announcement on October 23rd, it went down to $613. 613. I'll actually clarify that. Just to give you an idea of how people received the iPad mini and a new iPad 4 in the same year that the iPad 3 came out, October 22nd, you had $634, October 2nd, to $613 October 23rd. So in one day after the announcement, $21 price drop. And the reason for that is that people did not like that there was a new iPad already out when they had just bought their iPad 3. Secondly, the iPad mini was overpriced. And Apple was playing a betting game on this. And I'll explain that further, what I mean by that, the whole betting game, because they changed their entire strategy as a business with the iPad mini. November 2nd comes around. After the iPad mini announcement was on October 23rd, $613. November 2nd comes around, $576 when the iPad mini is released. So again, another huge price drop, and it keeps dropping, and Apple is like losing their mind. Then the reports hit for the sales on November 6th, and you can see from one day to the next, as soon as those sales reports hit, it was $537, which, to say the least, was really low. Their lowest, I think, was $525, so they bounced a little bit back now. But their main issue is that their sales reports showed that they only had sold 3 million total. Now, the reason why this is really bad is because the iPhone 3, or not, sorry, not the iPad 3. The iPad 3 sold 3 million its first weekend too. Now, Apple very strategically said that they sold 3 million iPad minis and iPad 4s, not disclosing which were the exact numbers for both. Now, this was very strategic, and I'll tell you why. It's because they lost money. And here's what I mean by that. So say if Apple did not release any more iPads for the rest of the year, and iPad 3 was the only thing that was out. Well, for every iPad sold, Apple gets $300 worth of profit. However, because of this new iPad mini, Apple only gets $130 worth of profit. So here's where it gets interesting. Apple has to sell more than 2 iPad minis, more than 2. Technically, they have to sell 3 just to break the profit they're missing from selling 1 iPad. And because they only sold 3 million, we did not see an increase. Actually, we saw a decrease in terms of how much money they're getting. Now, again, they didn't disclose which one were which. If I had to guess, I would say 1 million iPad 4s and 2 million iPad minis. But if you think about this is a lot less money compared to what the iPad would have got them alone. And the problem this continues to occur is that they will only sell iPad minis this holiday season. Not many people are going to buy iPads. And quite frankly, if I was an iOS user, I would be recommending all of my viewers to get iPads over iPad minis. iPad minis aren't worth a damn thing. They're slow, their screens are horrible quality, and I really don't like them in comparison. I would gladly choose an iPad. Now, one thing I do like about it is it's lighter. The iPad is the heaviest damn tablet. Well, the Surface now takes that crown, but still, iPad is really heavy compared to other tablets. Like every time I have to use an iPad, I'm like, oh Jesus, it's so heavy. So it's really interesting that Apple has chosen this route, and this is why. Apple has had 2 things make them successful. Brand image, as well as profit margin. And this is the two things that made Apple successful. You can say anything else, but overall, these are the two things that made them successful. And they are failing miserably at both. And here's why. In terms of brand image, they had marketing. Steve Jobs was great at approving all the best marketing ads ever for Apple, and Apple was a company that was made on marketing. Apple's marketing was genius with the iPods. If you think of the original iPods commercial, and think about what Apple did before then. Apple was filing bankruptcy before Steve Jobs came back, asked money from Bill Gates, and then brought a whole new world of iPods into marketing. He cornered the music and the video industry to only use Apple products, which now you can't be taken seriously if you don't use a MacBook for the music or the video filming industry, and which I think is hilarious because actually PCs can do just as good a job, if not better. I built the same ones, run the same programs, and I've proven to my friends that PCs can run actually better a lot of things than even and a MacBook can, or even the OS can. So it's really interesting that that is what made them, and now their marketing sucks. Not only that, but companies like Samsung are making really good marketing campaigns, while Apple is falling lackluster. With their iPhone 5 was the biggest credit to this letdown, and just horrible marketing on their part. You have, oh, now your phone can go from here to here. That was a poorly done commercial, because people weren't happy with the iPhone 5 screen to begin with. Secondly, you have, you have these other campaigns where they're like, oh, now you can do a panoramic shot, which every phone has been able to do that on Android for, I believe, at least 2 years, if not more. So, and that's natively without a third-party app, which you could do with iOS, of course, as well. But it's like that is what you have to say that's special about this phone, and simply because they couldn't really say anything else. Now they could have done better marketing. Don't get me wrong, but the thing is that their phone wasn't anything special anymore. Their phone was catching up to everyone else. And that's what Apple did this year. They're really playing catch up. So what I mean by that is that, they barely got 4G LTE. They barely got 4G. Their battery life still isn't that good in comparison to most other Androids out there, especially Samsung. I don't defend HTC when it comes to battery life. If you have an HTC, I'm sorry. Your battery life is probably not that good, and blame HTC for that. That's something that their president took a stand on. We know what customers like. They like thinner phones and don't care really much about the battery life. Wrong. People love battery life, and that's actually what won Samsung over with HTC, besides other things. But definitely one of the reasons I like Samsung better than HTC or even the new LG one is their battery life is just poor, and it shows. So yeah. Now, other than that, it's really kind of interesting to see that they have lost that marketing, but also brand image in terms of being a high-end product. Apple built their company on having high-end products. And one of the things that Tim Cook, a financial guy, decided to do was to bring Apple to make more profit, to try to sell more instead of going by their route of profit margin. So what he did was he actually brought them to prepaid. That brought Apple's status down. And not to me, I don't think Apple is like lower because of that, but the high-end, richer people do. They do believe it is that. And that's obviously a real problem for them. Sorry about that phone call in the background. Yes. So, the main thing is that Apple really has a poor time of. I'm not going to end this video. I'm just going to keep going. Sorry about the voice message, but basically, what really is interesting about that is that they have brought down their own status of going to prepaid, and higher end people really do not like it. They think it diminishes the quality. And I've actually been in higher end neighborhoods where people are like, ugh, Apple's on prepaid now. And like they're just like disgusted with it. And we saw this on Instagram too. When Instagram came to Android, so many rich people were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that now we're having to see like Android people on here." It diminishes the quality of Instagram because they think they're higher status. They're not. Their quality in terms of parts and quality overall hasn't been anywhere near Android for the past year. But the point is that they had, that status became apparent, and Apple, not knowing their own customer base, decided to go to prepaid. And while that might bring some numbers in, it didn't bring a lot in terms of Virgin Mobile. When the iPhone came to Virgin Mobile, they didn't sell one the entire first weekend in New York City, which is insane. Not one store sold it. That's just insane. It was really bad. So they have not done well in prepaid. The other thing that they've done is go away from their entire status of making money. Apple has always made money off of profit margin, not in terms of selling more products. This is why Apple sells way less computers compared to PCs, but they make up for it because they make more money on each MacBook sold. On each computer sold for like HP, Samsung, Toshiba, you're probably saying that they make anywhere from $100 to $300. However, Apple makes about 300 to 1,500 off of their devices. So they make a huge profit margin off of each one sold. Now, the reason why, and I'm varying, of course, from the lower price ones to the higher price ones. So they make a lot more money off of each product sold. Now, this is their entire plan. That's why they make more money in terms of profit compared to all of these other computer making companies, because other computer making companies have to sell about 10 just to get the same profit margin that one Apple product sells. And these are two different strategies. Now, the problem is that Apple is going away from this. Why buy a MacBook when you can just buy an iPad? Why buy an iPad when you can buy an iPad mini? And this is what's killing them now, is that, their iPhone 4S is selling more than their iPhone 5. Their iPad mini is selling more than their iPad. So they're undercutting themselves. And here's the problem with that, you know, Apple was upset that, Android had such success with 7-inch tablets. So what they did was they made their own 7-inch tablet. But the problem is that this holiday season, iPad minis will sell a lot more in comparing to iPads. Now, Apple will not release this because they would be idiots to, and it would only drop their stock further. But this is the main problem, is that, they're not getting as much profit, and they're not seeing the numbers increase dramatically. It's actually just the same amount of numbers. So put it this way, if they were to sell 1 million iPads, iPad 3s or iPad 4s now, they would be making about $300 profit per product sold. However, a minimum, by the way, it's 300 and up. If you get the 4G or the 32, 64 gig versions, they get more money. But a minimum, I'm just talking about the bare minimum product, because that's the one mostly sold. So you're getting a $300 profit margin off of 1 million iPads sold versus 1 million iPad minis sold. So what they did was they eventually undercut themselves, and now instead of selling 1 million iPads, they're going to sell 1 million iPad minis. They're not really increasing their numbers. They're only getting less money per product sold. And this is why we're going to continue to see Apple fall. Now, Apple has let go of their board member that created iOS 6 and OS X. So you are going to see a huge change in Apple next year, but it's kind of like, yeah, that's what other companies have tried to do. They've tried to do a huge change, and look at the success rate. Windows 8 hasn't been that successful as of late. BlackBerry is still struggling to do that. And although I don't think Apple will fall as quickly, they are going to fall. Android is the superior operating system, and that shows just in pure sales numbers. Not only that, but even their one saving grace was, oh, well, no one phone could beat us. Actually, the Galaxy S3 has outsold the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 5. So that whole logic is thrown out too. So it really is that they are falling, and they will continue to fall. They will try to pick themselves back up, but without improving on those two things. Don't get me wrong, I know how to improve those two things, but I would never do it. Is just because that they are falling. And if you see companies like Google and Samsung continue to make strides in this type of area with marketing and doing well at that, they will just keep dominating the market. Alright guys, that's been my rebuttal, why Apple will fall. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This has been RICKY, the Android